Okay, if you can hear me, we will get started in about 5 minutes. Nope.
Try it again.
Hello? Okay. Yeah, if you didn't hear me, we'll start in about 3 minutes now.
Well, I'm available afterwards too. Yeah. Here's your environmental document if you want to thumb through it too. It's super exciting.
Sure. How are you?
Good.
Do you read that before you go to bed now?
Light reading.
Yeah.
Uh-oh. She's gonna get a speeding ticket on the way over, isn't she?
No, it says it's live, but she says it ain't showing up. This is black. I said, well, I don't know why it's black.
Do you want me to go look at it?
Good, how are you?
Is it on Cheryl's desk?
She's coming.
Is it on Cheryl's desk or Paula's?
Cheryl's?
You want me to go look at it or not?
You can, but I don't know what you can do to.
Okay.
I think we're going to go ahead and get started. First of all, I want to thank everybody for coming out to the public meeting tonight. This is the public meeting for the Washington Avenue Reconstruction Project, so raise your hand if you're in the right place. If you would also, please silence your cell phones and any other electronic devices you have. This first part of the meeting will be a formal session where we're making the presentation, and it is being recorded, so we appreciate your cooperation on that. Also, I want to make sure, did everyone get copies of the packet, information packet up front, and sign in? And if you're interested in making a comment for the public record tonight, there was a separate sign-up sheet for that, so I want to make sure everybody saw that who's interested in making a comment. So if you didn't sign the sheet and want to make a comment, you can still sign it. Way of introductions, my name is Jeff Lazelle. I'm with United Consulting. We are the design firm that has been contracted with the city to do the design for the Washington Avenue project. So the short agenda for the meeting tonight will be to do, we'll first make some introductions, and then of the designers and the local officials who are present. Then we will present the project kind of in three different sections with three individuals making parts of the presentation. Following the presentation, there'll be a public statements session where you can make comments to be recorded for the record. And then after the formal part of the presentation and the comments, then we will conclude the formal session and remain around to answer questions. We have project plans on that table and this table over here, so we can meet with you more one-on-one if you have specific questions about the project and how it impacts you. The way of introductions, the Mayor of Vincennes is here, Mayor Yoakum, and thank you for coming, Mayor. And do you want to say a few words before we start?
I just want to welcome everyone and say thank you for taking time out of your evening to come listen to this presentation for this hearing. We're anxious to hear your thoughts and ideas on this project, and hopefully everything goes well and this project will end with a nice complete street on Washington Avenue.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Also, John Sprague is present, who is the Vincennes City Engineer. And I believe Aubrey Powder came in. She's with INDOT and is the INDOT project manager for this project. With me also from United Consulting tonight is Rob Iverson. Rob, raise your hand. And he's going to be making part of the presentation. Rob is project manager for this project. Devin Stetler is our environmental manager and will be making part of the presentation also. And Mike Oliphant is our environmental specialist, who will also be making part of the presentation. So we'll walk through the public participation steps. We'll walk through the environmental process, the purpose and need for the project design, including the existing conditions, proposed improvements, how we're intending to maintain traffic, and what the construction schedule is. We'll talk a little bit about the right-of-way acquisition process, and then we'll also have a session for public comments. Ways you can participate in the meeting: you're welcome to make a public statement tonight that will be recorded. You can also submit a comment form via fax or email or Dropbox. The form's up front. Okay. Form should have been up front for you to pick up. You see the email address there from Mike where you can send that form. And then there's a comment period that will end on May 26th, so please feel free to use any of those methods to make comments as works best for you. All comments that we received tonight will be evaluated and addressed in the final environmental document and recorded. All written comments, suggestions you received during the meeting will be addressed. And you're also welcome to make informal comments as you would like. Those will not be part of the public record, but we're certainly welcoming those comments tonight as well. Okay, so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mike Oliphant, who's going to kind of walk through some of the environmental aspects.
historic and archaeological,
No, we just have a black screen.
impacts, community impacts, parks, things like
It's on, but
that.
there's black,
Floodplains,
if you look at it
land
on
uses,
Facebook Live.
wetlands and waterways, noise, air quality, and public involvement as part of the environmental process.
She'll be here.
This project was a level 4 categorical exclusion, and general categorical exclusion means the actions do not have a significant effect
Yes,
on the
make
environment.
sure the lights are
There's
on.
4 levels of categorical exclusions, 1 through 4, so this is on the higher end.
I have no
The
idea.
project can also have environmental
Okay.
assessment, or a very large project might have an environmental impact statement. So as I said, this one qualified as a categorical exclusion. It was released by INDOT for public involvement in April 7th. The notice for this hearing tonight was advertised in the Vincent Sun Commercial on April 27th and May 4th. Like I said, the documents I say are available for public viewing. Also, the notices were sent to adjacent property owners. Really no wetlands within the property limits, pretty urban area. So purpose and need. The purpose of the project is to improve site distance, improve connectivity, and to improve stormwater drainage throughout the project. The need is due to aging storm sewer systems, incomplete connectivity of sidewalks, and some site distance and turning radiuses at some of the intersections throughout the project. At this time, I'm going to.
Thanks, Mike. So, first, we just have a slide going over some of the existing conditions out there. I guess the picture helps illustrate that we realize it's a historical area, so we're trying to make these improvements while minimizing impact to people's properties, front yards and driveways and things. So the existing Washington Avenue, generally not much pavement markings out there that you can see, but there's a pretty wide roadway section at the southwest end of the project, and it's approximately 38 feet wide at Emerson Avenue. Then throughout the project, as you get in front of Greg Park, the road's about 48 feet wide, and then the rest of the way is approximately 24 feet wide. There's one travel lane in each section with a couple turn lanes at Niblack and Forest Hills. There is an existing 24-foot wide section of concrete pavement that will be removed when the new road goes in. That'll be an added expense for the project, but that's included in the work. Then there's actually abandoned trolley lines west of Greg Park, going to the beginning of the project section. Those will also be removed as part of this project. And the existing speed limits will be maintained. They're currently 20 miles per hour from Emerson Avenue to Greg Park, and then the rest of the project east of Greg Park is 30 miles an hour. So next, I'll go over some of the proposed design. We have a couple displays showing what the project area is. Like I said, Emerson Avenue, and then the other end of the project is at Bell Crossing. We'll go over the typical sections, and then as part of the project, there will be drainage improvements. Curb and gutter with a proposed storm system will be installed as part of the whole project, so that'll replace any drainage ditches out there. And that system will outlet to 4 locations. At the beginning of the project, at Emerson Avenue, there's existing storm sewer for the city. That'll be one outlet, and then we'll outlet to Kelso Creek, both from both sides. Then there's a creek east of Kelso Creek that is close to the road. That'll be another outlet that the new inlets will drain to. And then during construction, traffic will be maintained. The road is planned to be closed to local traffic only, and there will be two phases. Everybody will always have access to their business or driveway to access the property at all times. But the plan is to close the road half of the time. Like I kind of mentioned before, for right-of-way impacts, we try to here's a map showing a little more zoomed in. You can see the project area, going by Greg Park and extending east to Bell Crossing. There is in the middle of the project, there's a small project exception at the bridge. That was constructed, I think, 2014. So that's a little project exception. The pavement won't be replaced here. The bridge won't be replaced. And next, I'll just go over the roadway typical section, which is basically just like a cross section or a side view of the proposed road. The travel lanes will be 12 feet wide in each direction, and on both sides of the road, throughout the whole project, will be 5-foot wide bike lanes. Those will be next to the travel lanes, in between the road lanes and the curb and gutter. And then behind curb and gutter, there will be sidewalks on both sides of the road through the whole project. And generally, the sidewalks, if there's no buffer, they're 6 feet wide. If there's room to provide a buffer, then the sidewalks are 5 feet wide. Then at the beginning of the project, from Emerson up to Old Orchard on the south side of the road, I think there's kind of a parking lane out there now, but it'll be striped as a parking lane as part of these improvements. We're just matching the existing locations for turning lanes, so it'll be similar to what's out there now. And then streetlights will be installed for the project length as part of this project. So the plan is to, the project length will be well. Here's a couple typical sections. I know it's kind of hard to read up there. These are like the engineering drawings from the plan. It's just displaying the dimensions that I just mentioned, but I guess the top section kind of shows where there's a newer section of pavement closer to the bridge. Will just be resurfaced mostly with some widening on each side, and then the rest of the project will be new pavement throughout with like the bikes or the bike lanes and the sidewalks, as I mentioned. Here's a display that is a little easier to read, maybe, where you can see how where the sidewalks and bike lanes are located. And then just going over a little more detail of the maintenance of traffic. As I mentioned before, the plan to maintain traffic during construction. I guess the overall goal is to build the road and provide access at the same time. And there'll be 2 main phases, one-way traffic in each direction. So the drainage pattern kind of controls what side of the road we build first. We try to build the downstream end, so when we build the upstream end, there's something to connect to. So during the first phase of the project, the westbound lane will be open for local traffic, and then we just flip sides for the second phase. And here's just a graphic showing you, the basic layout of what will happen during construction. And there'll be temporary connections made to all the driveways, so access will be provided for that. And then Devin's going to talk about the right of way to finish up the presentation.
Thanks, Rob. Thanks, Jeff. As Rob indicated, I'm Devin Stetler with United Consulting. Thanks for everybody for coming out. We really appreciate your participation. I wanted to go through just real quick the right-of-way process that's going to be used tonight. The first thing we have to do during the right-of-way process is figure out who owns the property adjacent to the corridor. We do that by completing title researches for the project. After we've identified the ownership, then we need to figure out what the right-of-way is along the project corridor. So we determine the existing property lines, we determine the proposed right-of-way acquisition, what do we need to acquire to fit our proposed project. Once we've identified that envelope, then we prepare legal descriptions which actually describe the right-of-way that we propose to acquire. And then along with those descriptions, we put together exhibits or land plats that actually show you what it is that the city needs to acquire in order to build the project. Once we've completed the right-of-way engineering, which includes the title searches and the land descriptions and the exhibits, then we go to the appraising process. And that's kind of where we're at in terms of this project right now. As soon as the NEPA process concludes, we can start the appraising on the project. We'll determine before and after acquisition values of individual parcels along the corridor, and that difference then becomes the offer amount that the city will make to try to acquire the property. team of appraisers that will determine before and after acquisition values and put together an appraisal report. Their result will be the offer amount that's presented to you. We also have a team of buyers that are standing by that once that offer amount has been determined and the city has had an opportunity to review and approve the offer amounts, they will, on the city's behalf, will work with you and try to secure the property. So those are a couple of steps that over the next few months will get hammered out as we move forward with the project. In terms of right-of-way, the existing right-of-way for the project corridor ranges from 40 to 60 feet, depending upon where you're at. As you all know, the land uses for the corridor are varied. It's kind of an urban corridor, so you've got a mix of residential and commercial uses, along with some recreational uses with the park. For this project, we know that we're going to acquire property from 30 individual properties along this corridor. We're going to need about 1.66 acres of permanent right-of-way. This is broken out by 1.52 acres of commercial and residential properties and about 1.42 acres from Gregg Park. In addition to that permanent right-of-way, we will need to buy some temporary right-of-way, not a lot, about 4/10 of an acre. This right-of-way will be used for drive construction and grading throughout the project corridor. That really kind of summarizes the right-of-way process, and I'll be around later if you have individual questions. That kind of concludes this part of the presentation. I think at this point we're ready to listen to you. We'd love to hear the feedback that you have regarding the project and what you've heard. I know we have just a handful of folks that signed up on speaker list. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and call those individuals to step forward if they wish to make a public comment. We're going to record your statement this evening. Again, our intent is to actually record what you have to say regarding the project. During this process, we won't actually be responding to those comments. At the conclusion of the formal presentation, we'll be more than happy to meet with you individually and kind of on a one-on-one basis to hear any comments or questions you might have, and we'll respond to those accordingly. But for right now, we just want to get those, get your comment and feedback for the record tonight. So with that, the first person on the list will be welcomed to the podium is Nancy. Nancy's going to break the ice.
Didn't realize I was first.
Nancy, if you could say your name and last name for us.
I'm Nancy Hensel. I live at 1212 Old Orchard Road, right on the corner of Washington Avenue and Old Orchard. And I guess I really want to say I'm for this project. I think it's long overdue. It'll be a nice addition to our area. But of course, I have some questions and trepidations about some parts of it. So I've been walking this sidewalk for about a year now with my daughter, back and forth to town to all sorts of different things. And so I have a little general comment. The sidewalk reconstruction is really needed. It's very torn up in many, many places. But in the review material, you know, I've got a stack about this high at my house. It talked about, I think it was Burnett Lane, but one of the corners that had the name of the street imprinted in the sidewalk. But in walking by and back and forth all this time, I've discovered that there at least were imprints of all of the streets along that way. So I think that we should be sure that we're not just having one street, but that all of the streets should go back to that imprint. I thought that was a nice idea. I don't see how a bike lane will work on Gregg Park, because I go down to Washington Avenue, I cross the avenue, and then there's a pretty steep pitch to go down into the park from Washington Avenue. And I don't see how a bike lane is going to fit on that side. I don't know, it's going to be built up on that side with a wall, or I don't know how it will be. So I'm hoping that somebody will make that clear. And then I have some personal questions. It indicated on a couple of the documents that I received that there are going to be trees and land taken from my property. And I wish there was some way that anyone could tell me, I don't know exactly what it said, but it said sort of a few trees. It said a certain percentage of property that will go, and I would really like to have somebody show me, what does that mean? Is it like this much, or is it this much? So I'm hoping that somewhere along the way I'll get a better sense of what that could be. The other thing that I'm concerned about is that it seems to me that my home is not too far back from Washington Avenue. There is a stand of trees there, but if some of those are going, and then the hillside is going to be cut into, does that mean that the slope will be so high that my house could slide down? I don't know. I just want to be sure that, well, you can tell it's a consideration to me what's going to happen to my home. And if there is going to be a cut into the hillside, is there going to be a retaining wall? I know on the other side of Old Orchard Road, there's a short, small retaining wall on my neighbor's property, and there are drains that come out, and it looks to me as if they have been placed there after the construction of the wall. So I want to know what is going to happen to deal with the water that will come down off that, because quite a bit of water does come down through my property. If there is a retaining wall, who's determining the design of that wall, and who determines, I guess there is something that I got tonight that talked a little bit about the compensation for eminent domain, and I guess I'd like to know what that will include. And I would like to know when it will be started and when completed. So I'm wanting to say I'm for it, but I would like to have some questions answered. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Next up, we have James Burrell.
She pretty well covered everything I would.
Think we get this right, Rick?
Rick Lindenberg, representing the Harmony Society that owns Harmony Park at 2717 Washington Avenue. We're all for this project. I think it's a great thing. We do have concerns because the second creek that you talked about runs right down the frontage of our property, and we own ground, the way I understand it, on both sides of that. And ever since that bridge was built in 2014, we've been fighting erosion there. I mean, when that bridge was put in, they've changed the velocity and the curve and stuff, and we've been fighting erosion there, so we're concerned about that. And we'd like to find a good solution for that strip property on the roadside of that small creek. Thank you.
Okay, there's one other person. Can't really read the writing, so. Is it Nestor? Is that name not right? Grove?
Hi, I'm Deaton Grove. I live at 518 Barnett Street. I don't live anywhere near this project, really. I live on the complete opposite side of town. I do want to say I am very much for this project, and I'm very interested in the bike lanes that are being put in there. I consider myself a cyclist. I ride relatively often, and I'm always excited to get new biking infrastructure. So currently, the bike lanes that I can think of in Vincennes include the newest Main Street bike lane, the Share the Road zone on 2nd Street, and a bike lane that goes down Red Skeleton Boulevard. So, and my examples here kind of show some of the good things and bad things that I've seen with our existing bike lanes. I just kind of want to put that out there for consideration. So with the newest bike lane on Main Street, the gutter that runs along the road protrudes relatively far, and it was considered in the 5 foot of space. There's drains that protrude, I believe it's 2.5 feet, and they stretch the entire length of the path, and they're very frequent. As a cyclist, these drains are, you don't want to hit them. We'll put it that way. So that leaves you with about 32 inches of rideable space. It's relatively narrow, so it makes it a little bit tricky to use it as a full wide bike lane. So the 2nd Street Share the Road zone isn't technically classified as a bike lane, which there's no issue with. And I know this probably goes into existing infrastructure that would have been incredibly costly to change, but the entire length of that stretch, there are potholes, or I'm sorry, not potholes, but manhole covers. Again, something that if you hit one of these at any kind of speed on a bike, it's quite painful, can damage wheels. Just something that I would like to be considered during this project. And then this last example here is the bike lane that is on Red Skeleton Boulevard. This is what I would consider an excellent bike lane. This is one of my favorite ones to ride through town. It gives 57 inches of rideable space, and I consider the rideable space the asphalt portion of the bike lane. It's free of any manhole covers or any other type of utility devices, and it's what I consider the perfect bike lane. I'm no engineer, but I just kind of wanted to give my statement on what I would love to see. Thank you.
Before we move on, I wanted to give or extend the opportunity for anybody else that might want to make a public statement tonight. Going once? Okay. For those of you, just a reminder, for those of you that might not or might be a little shy and don't want to make a verbal statement, feel free to, if you want to give a statement, track one of us down. We handed out comment forms. Feel free to fill out the comment form, return it to anybody on the project team. We'll take that comment into consideration.
Can you give a mailing address so that we have 2 weeks, I guess, to comment, so.
Mailing
Oh.
addresses, right? Yeah, so we have 2 weeks. We provide the written comments and like often at our firm. I'm sure if you gave them to John as well, he made sure that we get those comments. You can send us an email. I brought my business card. You feel free to grab one of my business cards, send me an email. And we'll take that comment and it will be included in the environmental document. Again, we respectfully wish to receive those comments by the 26th of May. Any comments, verbal or written, emails that we receive will be included in the environmental document. In addition to the environmental document, or included with the environmental document, will be a transcript of tonight's meeting. So all of the presentation you saw tonight will be included in the environmental document. The hearing comments, our responses to the verbal and written comments will be included. The mailing addresses, so everybody that received notice of tonight's meeting, the publisher's affidavit, so all of that type of information will be
You are?
Give me two.
Yeah, she said there's a note that says you just click something, in live video. I've got two good applicants, really good. No. Actually, I've had two applicants, but only two of them. That I'll consider, because they've got 4-year degrees in recreation